Let me ask you something that's going around right now. A lot of this conversation about President Biden getting criticized from both sides of the aisle for pardoning his son Hunter after repeatedly saying he would never do it. And a lot of people are saying that it's hypocritical, et cetera, as if the other side doesn't do it. But what's your reaction to it?
I mean, I think all of the criticism is valid because, Democrats stand on this moral high ground all the time. And, they act so self-righteous. The reality is he didn't have to say anything in regards to, whether or not, his son wanted to be pardoned. He could have said, hey, man, I'm not focused on that right now. But since they were calling Trump a threat to democracy and they were saying that, nobody's above the law, but they were speaking about him, that's what they were running on. So when he kept saying things like, nobody's above the law, I respect, the jury's decision in regards to my son, he didn't believe that. But he didn't have to volunteer that lie to begin with.
I'm going to stop you for a second.
I think Charlamagne fed up. I think Charlamagne is still upset that Joe Biden had the nerve to disrespect him and say, you ain't black if you don't vote for me. Negro. Y'all know what Joe Biden wanted to drop after that. You ain't black if you don't vote for me. Little Negro. Come on now. And did I miss some? All right, so I missed the comment. Hold on. All right, so Queez wrote, crack cheap in poverty neighborhoods, cocaine more potent in suburbs. One is more criminalized than the other. We 100%, Queez. That's why I will not feel bad. I will not feel bad when your dad gets up there. And once again, I know that Uncle Brother is not saying this. I'm not talking to Uncle Brother. Trust me, I know that Uncle Brother is not feeling. I know that Uncle Brother has no remorse when it comes to this, and Joe Biden. But Joe Biden, how do you call certain people certain names and treat them like animals and keep them away from my family, keep them away from our family? They need to be, you're getting locked up. When it's the difference between just the form of the drug. That's like getting mad at somebody saying, yo, ice is terrible, but water, yo, you good with water. Ice, we locking you up for that. But water, nah, you good. Like it's the same thing. It's H2O. I don't know if it's the same. Is ice still H2O? It's just in a different form. So I'm not with it, bro. I'm not with it. Uncle Brother wrote, I agree with you. Hunter could have gone no contact with his father, or could he? I don't know what he could have done or couldn't do. If you get caught up in these families, just like a lot of kids get caught up in these gangs, where their daddy's a gang member, their granddaddy, their uncles, and all this other stuff, we put more on their plate and tell them like, oh, well, don't get involved. Go no contact. Hunter Biden could have flown anywhere in the world and just distanced himself from his dad. These little homies growing up in the hood, they can't go somewhere else and distance themselves. They got to walk home these same streets that their dad was out here acting a fool on. They got to walk those same streets and get home safe every day. They got to figure it out in these neighborhoods where they may not have a dad in the household, but they need some form of protection. So what do they turn to? They may not play sports. So now they don't have something after school that they can get involved to. What are they doing? So that's my mindset looking at it. That's my mindset. All right, so let's get to this Charlamagne interview.
Let me ask you something that's going around right now. A lot of this conversation about President Biden getting criticized from both sides of the aisle for pardoning his son Hunter after repeatedly saying he would never do it. And a lot of people are saying that it's hypocritical, et cetera, as if the other side doesn't do it. But what's your reaction to it?
I mean, I think all of the criticism is valid because, Democrats stand on this moral high ground all the time. And, they act so self-righteous. The reality is he didn't have to say anything in regards to, whether or not, his son wanted to be pardoned. He could have said, hey, man, I'm not focused on that right now. But since they were calling Trump a threat to democracy and they were saying that, nobody's above the law, but they were speaking about him, that's what they were running on. So when he kept saying things like, nobody's above the law, I respect, the jury's decision in regards to my son, he didn't believe that. But he didn't have to volunteer that lie to begin with.
I'm going to stop you for a second.
Uh-oh.
Only because.
Yo, I'm sick of the energy that we allow I'm sick of the things that we allow women to get away with. I'm keeping it real, especially black women. I'm sick of it. Why? Because it hurts our communities. It hurts our communities. If a black man or a white man or any other colored man would have just responded to a woman the way that Whoopi Goldberg responded to Charlamagne, we'd be looking at it totally differently. It's funny when Whoopi does it. It's cute. It's all this other stuff. It's her being a strong, courageous black woman. It's rude. It's rude. And maybe I've already heard the whole conversation, so y'all may be looking at it like, damn, bro, it wasn't that serious. I'm tired of it. I see it showing up in too many areas. I see us, in my opinion, and actually this was the point that I was going to make earlier. Y'all tell me real quick. Are we living in a feminized society? I think most of the people that come here regularly would say that we are living in a feminized society, or would agree the fact that our society has become more feminized. You can say that it's still a masculine society, but it's become more feminized. I may have already touched on this point. My apologies if I did, but I don't think I elaborated on it the way that I wanted to. 100 years ago, I was talking to my dad yesterday, and I said 100 years ago, the fact that everybody's sitting here right now and saying, oh yeah, I would pardon my son. Of course I would pardon my son. I would do anything to get my kid out of trouble. Yeah, why not? 100 years ago, I do not think as many people would have the same energy that we look at it right now as just, oh, I would pardon my son. It's like, yo, you take on a job, a responsibility that accepting the role of president is to do exactly what all of those Democrats in that video said when they said nobody's above the law. How can you, in any leadership position, if the leader of a team is not abiding by the rules that they set for the rest of the team, then we know that the rest of the team is not going to respect those same rules. If the leader of the football team, if the captain of the football team is telling everybody, y'all got to stop partying, let's make sure that y'all get in early, get a good night's sleep for this game, that y'all stay focused, look at film. And you know the leader of the team is going out, not looking at any film, not being focused, drinking, smoking before the game. Is anybody else on the team going to respect it? No. So when you take on this responsibility as the president, everybody's just sitting here now saying, of course I would pardon my son. I don't know if I would pardon my son. I don't have kids, so I also I want to be very clear with that. I understand that, or maybe I won't understand until I have kids, how much of a difference it makes with your mindset and perspective on what you would do to get your kids out of trouble. I understand that. But I'm even looking at it from a son's perspective. Like, I would lose a little bit of respect for my dad. I'm being totally honest, or a little bit of how I hold my dad in high regards based on him being willing to budge on something that he took a role as that you're supposed to be there to instill justice in America. You are the leader of America. You should be following the rules more than anybody else in the country, so that way you set that standard. And this is why I'm about to go a whole totally different direction. This is why Tom Brady is the greatest player of all time. Maybe in team sports, period. Tom Brady is the greatest player of all time because he allowed himself, as great as he was, he allowed himself to be held to an even higher standard than everybody else on the team. He allowed himself to be held to a higher standard when he had the privilege, being who he was, of being able to get away with moving at a lower standard. But instead, he held himself to a higher standard, which made it easier for the coaches to now hold the rest of the team to a higher standard, and for the entire staff to be held to an entire standard, because Tom Brady, the most important person to that organization, allowed himself to be held to a higher standard than what was deemed acceptable maybe for the rest of the team. That is what true leadership is. The fact that so many men are walking around here saying, I would have pardoned him too. I would have pardoned him too. Cool. Okay, cool. Not saying you're wrong, but we do have to acknowledge that that is a more feminized approach to this. That is straight emotion. Well, my son is so important. Yo, your job. This is the role. Let me ask y'all a question. What is the point of if we celebrated Joe Biden for saying that he would not get involved in the decision with his son? That if we celebrated, all y'all Democrats celebrated the fact that nobody's above the law. Look at Joe Biden. He didn't even pardon his son. That's a righteous thing to do. That's integrity, right? So we celebrated that for all of the reasons why we should celebrate it. But now, as soon as he pardons his son, excuse me, as soon as he pardons his son, now we're looking at it like, oh yeah, I would have done the same thing. So if that's the case, then we can never look at a lot of these situations where it's like, let me give an example. We get mad at people that are in privileged positions and that get away with certain things. We complain about, oh, well, my boss just allowed this person because of favoritism, all this other stuff. Stop complaining about any of that. Everybody shut up and stop complaining about the favoritism that somebody receives at work, the favoritism that somebody receives in the family. Stop complaining about it, because we're all okay with what Joe Biden did and extending a certain level of favoritism to his family. And this is what I mean by people don't care about principles and morals or values and integrity. People don't care really. People don't think that privilege and racism and prejudice, people don't think that privilege and racism is wrong. People just get mad when it doesn't work in their favor. People don't care. This is why a lot of these answers to a lot of these problems, it's like, oh, well, racism has been ruining this country and has put my family and the demographic of people that I represent behind. So the answer that people are looking for is not to make everything, quote unquote, an evil level playing field. No, the answer is now I need some privilege. Now I want things to work in my favor, not equally. I want things to work in. I'm old. So now I want things easier for me. It was easier for them. It was easier for me. There's a certain group of principled people that will just look at things and say, yo, I understand that y'all had it unfair and that y'all were cheating, but I don't feel that I need to get any get back in cheating. Matter of fact, I think that get back that we would perceive as if we're cheating, that's actually going to hurt me because that compromises my morals and values. So I'm not going to stoop down to your level, right? Didn't Michelle Obama say this? When they go low, we go high, right? Wasn't that the thing that everybody was celebrating, right? That's why we love her. That's why we pack the events that when she's doing her book signings and all this stuff. That's why we love her, right? It's insane how we're looking at stuff and the things that we get away with. And going back to the initial point, I think it's because we've become a more and more feminized society that is based on emotions, because we all know what a mother would do in that position. We all know what a mother would do in that position. A mother is taking care of their kids. I don't care. It is what it is. I'm getting my kid out of trouble. But men and women are different. So maybe that's a good thing. But the guy is supposed to come in and say, what? I got a more logical approach. Hold on. You know, the emotion and logic are supposed to work together. But when we got an emotional woman and then emotional men, then we have exactly what we have in our communities right now. Let's keep going. My fault. Let me hold on. So Quee said he used to like Whoopi. Shout out to Urs in the building. Urs said contradictions, and more contradictions. I agree. Uncle Brother wrote, but how many sports teams have big fat coaches barking orders at his players to do more laps? We're living in a culture of do as I say, not as I do. But to your point, I would use this example, Uncle Brother. I think it's different because a coach does not have to live. A coach's job, his role is not to run and tackle. Is not to catch passes. A coach's job is to put you in a position. So I think a better example, you tell me, would be a trainer. So that's like you have a trainer that's telling you to eat healthy, that's telling you to work out, that's telling you to incorporate all these things into your day that are going to bring you to a healthier place. But meanwhile, they're eating BS, they're drinking BS, they're out of shape, overweight, all these different things, right? You tell me this, should that trainer, should the weight of their words be as heavy as somebody that's actually living the life that they're telling you to live? right? People don't follow what you tell them, right? Just like kids don't listen to what you tell them. They follow what they see you doing. So that would be the same example for me. That trainer that's out of shape, they're not going to be able to recruit as many people to train with them. At least they shouldn't be able to. They shouldn't be able to make as much training other people. They shouldn't, their words shouldn't have as much value because clearly they don't believe it enough to actually implement it in their day-to-day lives. So that's how I would look at it. So I can't be held, and that's what makes, just like what you said, there's plenty of teams, right? There's plenty of teams out here that do not have their superstar like Tom Brady that allows other coaches and allows them to be held to a higher standard. Why do we think that what Tom Brady and the Patriots did, why do you think that they were able to do that? Why do you think that there was a 20-year period in Tom Brady's career where he had a greater chance of going to the Super Bowl than Steph Curry has of making a three-pointer? Think about that. The most competitive sport in the world, the most competitive league in the world is the NFL. Tom Brady went to the Super Bowl. This is not the best of 7 or the best of 5 series like a lot of these other sports. This is March Madness when you get into the NFL playoffs. You lose, you go home. That's why March Madness is called March Madness, because anything can happen. Tom Brady, in the most competitive sport, the most competitive league in the world, was able to go to the championship game, the Super Bowl, 10 out of a higher chance than Steph Curry making a three-pointer. The performance says it all. Shout out to Brandon in the building. So Brandon wrote, double standards lead to liars and cheaters. We are thirsty for true leadership based on integrity, morals, values, and ethics with strong character. That's a fact. I'm telling y'all right now, if I took on the position, and this, of course, I got to be, nobody knows what they're going to do until they get in that position. But I think that people know me well enough, people that know me in real life especially, know me well enough that if I was president, if I'm telling y'all that I wouldn't just automatically pardon my son, and that I don't think that I would. I'm being totally, I'm just being real with y'all. And I don't know to what extent Biden's involved, so I'm not looking at it like that. If Biden taking that part out of it, I would not just, I don't have the mindset, of course I'd pardon my son. Nah, I'm not, I'll probably lose my relationship over it. But if the role that I take, if I know, think about it like this, if I know that this decision that I'm making is going to set a certain standard for America, that role that you take on, nobody forced Joe Biden to become president. So when you accept that role to lead, I think people are downplaying because of how we see Joe Biden and maybe how we see a lot of these politicians, especially with Joe Biden and his current health. I think that a lot of us are not really understanding the position that the president of the United States, this is the person that leads the world. This is the role that leads the rest of the world. And you're telling me that if I make a decision to stand on principles and values that I've campaigned on, ran on, stood on my entire life, and now I'm going to compromise that for my son and compromise the integrity of the entire country and in a lot of aspects of the world, you think that I'm going to choose to help my son at the expense of harming the entire country and the world? But see, people don't look at and maybe that's the problem. People don't look at that role as president as maybe what we should be looking at it as. Like, yo, nobody forces you in this position. You took it on. You took on that position. And if you do make that, hold on, let me be very clear. If you do make that decision to pardon your son, if I did make that decision, I would probably resign. I would have to, or I would acknowledge, I would go on there and acknowledge, I do not feel good about this decision. It goes against my principles. It goes against my values. It goes against my integrity. And it goes against the very things that I've stood on my entire life. However, I love my son and I'm making this decision. I would respect that more. But you acting as if like you're not violating principles and compromising the integrity of the country as the leader of the country, I can't respect it. I can't respect it. No round two. Shout out Kendrick. What's that? Oh man, don't tell me Kendrick hit Drake with some more. Uncle Brother wrote, indeed, I agree with you. We learn by example. That's it, bro. That's it. At the end of the day, we learn by example. So if people are not setting the right examples, we got to call it out. It has to be called out or get out of the role. You don't have to be president. Does everybody understand? You do not have to be president. If you do not have those types of principles, morals, and values and integrity where you're willing to put the country above all, then don't be president. There's plenty of other ways that you can make money out here. Figure it out in a different way. You don't have to become president. Let's keep going. Let's keep going.
Because you don't know that it was a lie. We don't know.
Volunteered.
Yeah, I had to stop it. Please listen to this. Whoopi Goldberg is saying you don't know if it was a lie. That's like me. Like what? How do we not know if it was a lie? If somebody says, I'm not going to do something based on A, B, and C, and then they come out and say, yeah, I'm doing it. I don't know what a lie means. Like, does intent factor into a lie? Or if I say I'm going to pick you up at 6 and I didn't pick you up at 6, I lied, right? I don't know how else to look at this.
That lie to begin with. In regards of saying things like, oh, nobody's above the law. I respect, the jury's decision in regards to my son. He didn't believe that, but he didn't have to volunteer that lie to begin with.
I'm going to stop you for a second.
Uh-oh.
Only because you don't know that it was a lie. We don't know why he changed his mind.
You really think he just changed his mind over Thanksgiving weekend all of a sudden?
No, I'm going to tell you what I think.
Okay.
Yeah. I think he changed his mind because he got sick of watching everybody else get over.
Listen to the people clap in the background. This is what I mean when I say that our leadership has become feminized. I'm sick of other people getting over. Now I'm going to get over. Can you imagine being the president of the United States or being in a leadership position and saying, I'm sick of being held to this same standard of everybody else. I'm going to now just do the same thing that I've been complaining about them doing.
And this is just my feeling, because at some point you get to the place where you just go, so I'm just going to follow the straight and narrow always, because that's what's expected of Democrats.
But that's their fault. They're the ones that go out. They're the ones that go out there and they stand on this moral high ground. Listen, they don't have to do that.
I'm a Democrat. Tell me what the moral high ground is.
The moral high ground is nobody's above the law. I respect what the jurors are saying. He don't have to do that.
We're mad at him because he changed his.
Oh, no. By the way, I'm not mad at him pardoning Hunter Biden.
But you sound like you're mad.
No.
If I can get in on this, I actually think it went further, and this is one thing we really disagree on. Joe Biden made a point of saying we stand by our institutions and the impartiality of the department.
Whoopi. Yo, this lady, Alyssa, I think her name's Alyssa Farah, she's on her way off the show. She's too honest for them. And she was the Republican that used to stand on, I believe she worked with Trump's administration, actually. So the only reason why she had been compromising, in my opinion, and pandering to a lot of the other ladies on The View just to stay on the show, saying I hate Trump. And then literally, I think a couple shows ago, she was like, well, yeah, I agree with 70% of his policies, but I just don't. I'm like, yo, what? You agree with 70% of his policies, but the last couple of years, all you've been doing is bashing him and just saying how you're voting for somebody, you're voting for, you're not supporting Trump. You're not. These are the emotions that factor into our decisions when, in my opinion, it can sway us in ways that focusing on it from a logical standpoint will not. She's on her way out. She's too sensible. She's too sensible on a show that is nonsensical.
Joe Biden made a point of saying we stand by our institutions.
Is that the right word, nonsensical?
Yes, I understand all that.
Impartiality of the Department of Justice.
Yes.
Democrats ran on that. The same DOJ indicted Hunter Biden. How we shouldn't be saying it's corrupt like Donald Trump does. But then in his statement pardoning Hunter Biden, he says that it was a political pursuit by his own Department of Justice.
Can you explain to me why it is that when Joe Biden...
Did Whoopi even listen to what she's saying? You're saying that it was unfair, and this is to the point that I made earlier. You're saying that Hunter Biden was unfairly targeted. It's your Department of Justice. Can you imagine? Think about it like this. If your Department of Justice convicted Hunter of those crimes, right? Charged him with those crimes. Can you imagine what somebody else's, a non-biased, a more objective Department of Justice would have charged Hunter with?
Biden does.
But then in his statement pardoning Hunter Biden, he says that it was a political pursuit by his own Department of Justice.
Can you explain to me why it is that when Joe Biden does something, everybody clutches their pearls? He's wrong.
Nobody
he lied.
has criticized Donald Trump more than me or Charlamagne the God.
I'm sorry. Yeah, people have criticized him more. I've criticized him more. We've all criticized him more. But you're missing my question.
Okay.
My question is, what is it that makes people flip out with Joe, but we don't have the same kind of thing?
I don't know whether Whoopi is choosing to sound ignorant. I don't know if that's the best way to, I'm trying to be nice. If I tell y'all, let me give y'all an example. If I tell y'all, it's a funny one, that eating meat is bad, it's a terrible thing, shame on you if you're eating meat, you should not be killing animals, you should be saving the animals, hugging these trees, and every time you kill an animal, it's a negative thing, it's from a spiritual standpoint, it's just a morally bad thing to do, right? If I say that, and then meanwhile, somebody else that I'm debating with or who has a different opinion on it says, no, we should be allowed to eat meat. You know, it is what it is, you know, balance your diet out. I don't know what you're talking about from a spiritual standpoint. It's healthy, and I'm cool with it. We need to eat meat. Two totally different perspectives, right? But now, if you catch me eating meat, and after all this stuff I've told y'all and criticized y'all, and Barack Obama wagged my finger at y'all for doing, and now I'm doing the same thing, of course it's going to be looked at differently with me saying it, because the entire time I was criticizing y'all for doing something and telling y'all that I don't do it. Of course you're going to look at me differently than the person that all along was telling you, yo, it's cool to eat meat. No problem. Whoopi Goldberg is sitting here acting as if she doesn't understand the difference between these two things. Joe Biden and the Democrats were running on this, saying this is the difference between Trump and our party. This is why you should vote our party instead of yours, or instead of Trump. So now that Trump wins, now you're saying, oh, well, it's okay. You know, Biden should get away with this. You know, Trump been getting away with it. So it's a totally different thing. People are not seeing it that way. And it just says a lot about how we view things and how we justify certain things based on our affiliation to these damn political parties. It completely destroys our mind. Now, Whoopi's got to defend Joe Biden. Whoopi should have just been like, yo, like he lied, it's wrong. And maybe what Charlamagne said, Whoopi should have said the same thing. He shouldn't have said anything. He should have just pardoned his son, and it is what it is. I would still be criticizing it, but I don't think it would have looked nearly as bad when you're running a campaign based on you being the up and up, this moral high ground that Charlamagne's talking about. It's because y'all say Trump acts like he's above the law. We put the law above everything. But then you do something that puts your son and you above the law. I don't understand what Whoopi's talking about, and a lot of these other Democrats that justify what Joe Biden did with Hunter Biden.
I don't think people are flipping out with Joe. I think Democrats are flipping out with Joe because Democrats believe that they don't represent what he's currently representing. But that's just not true. That's why I say they stand on this moral high ground that simply does not exist. And I think this is also the problem when we pick sides, right? We've turned political parties into teams. I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan. Ain't nobody more delusional than me, right? Okay? I feel like we're going to the Super Bowl every year, but I'm not delusional. Well, no.
Charlamagne listening to the show, man.
That is delusional. But when it comes, but when it comes to political parties, if you pick a side, right? If you say you're a Democrat, if you say you're a Republican, you refuse to be objective about anything.
I'm an independent.
Yes, but that's
and I
not,
think that's the best way to go.
but that's not a monolith. We're not, Democrats are not a monolith.
But why can't you say when Democrats are wrong? And why can't Republicans say when Republicans are wrong?
I'll tell you when Democrats are wrong.
So you don't think Joe Biden is wrong?
No, I don't. And can I just point this out to you? The president has a pardon power,
you're
right?
ridiculous.
I didn't say you were ridiculous.
Yeah, hold on. I'm a black women. I have to say it again. Black women have been allowed to get away with so much, and it's destroying them. It's destroying relationships with black men. It's destroying. It's really hurt. It's to the point where now it's hurting American culture. Y'all are probably sitting here saying like, "Yo, what is he talking about? Like, why is he picking?" Look at how Sonny touches Charlamagne. Look what Sonny does to Charlamagne when she's making a point right here. Some of y'all will say, "Oh, that's nothing." A man knows that this is a problem when you're touching somebody trying to prove your point. Just look at it.
Republicans say when Republicans are wrong.
I'll tell you when Democrats are
wrong. So you don't think Joe Biden is wrong?
No, I don't. And can I just point this out to you? The president has a pardon power, right?
Like, bro,
I didn't say you were ridiculous, Ms. Goldberg. I would never. I said that. So you don't think Joe Biden is wrong?
No, I don't. And can I just point this out to you? The president has a pardon power, right?
I didn't say you were ridiculous, Ms. Goldberg. I would never. I said that. I just think that's ridiculous.
Think about it this way.
Any man knows that if you're having a debate with somebody, don't put your hand in my space. Don't touch me, and don't put your hand in my space. Men know that. This is the privilege that women get away with, and that in particular, I'm talking about black women because I see it with Whoopi and Sonny and how aggressive they are on this show compared to the other ladies right now on this show. Right now. You can't get away with that. This goes back to the same thing that we always say. Women want the privilege of women. They want the power of men and the accountability of kids. That's the culture that we live in right now. Now, for women that don't feel that way, don't get upset with me. You should be able to look at the world that we're living in and see that that's the case. If that's not the case with you, then more power to you. I'm not talking about you. But if you get triggered by that, maybe I am talking about you.
Come on.
Just very quickly.
All right, so let me move this screen and we'll catch up with the comments. Quee says 70% is a lot to the earlier point. And Brandon wrote, "It's sad that we have allowed television shows to consume viewer time with such hate, bias, and lies as The View. For far too long, this platform has helped tear our country apart. The sane ignore it." I agree, bro. I agree. And Queez, remind me, what did I say the 70% about? I forgot what I even said the 70% about. But I agree with this. I agree with this. It's sad. It's sad that The View even has as much pull that it has. It's sad that people actually look at The View for their news and to really hear perspectives that are going to shape their own perspectives and how they see the world. Mama Lay wrote, "Did you see Charlamagne's face when Whoopi said that? It's Whoopi's braids too tight. It is ridiculous." I agree. It's like nothing matters anymore. That's just the place that we are in right now. Nothing matters. People can do what they want. Oh man, a purge may be coming soon. I don't know what's going on. Let's get to the next video though. Ew, it's Dak. Just want to thank you for checking out our video and visiting the OG Network. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure that you give us a like. And if you're looking to join a community of inspired individuals striving for purposeful abundance, subscribe. And if you're feeling real generous, share the video with some friends and family. All right, I'll see y'all soon. Ew.